Today, we're going to dive into a series of relational strategies that, on the surface might look totally normal, even socially acceptable, but underneath, they're actually structured patterns of manipulation, often used by individuals with narcissistic personality traits. We're going to explore exactly how these hidden dynamics work, and just as importantly, the profound impact they can have.
And that really brings us to the core question of this whole explainer, right? How do you tell the difference? Where's the line between just innocent social behaviors and a deliberate, corrosive pattern of emotional abuse? It's a really subtle distinction, but it's absolutely critical.
So to understand all this, we need to be on the same page. When we talk about Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD, we're not just talking about vanity or someone who likes to look in the mirror. No, we're talking about a much deeper personality structure that's driven by this intense need for admiration and power. And this often leads them to exploit relationships just to prop up a really fragile sense of self. Validation and control, those are the primary tools.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of it. We're going to start with the foundational tactic, the systematic, intentional testing of a partner's personal and emotional boundaries. This right here, this is where that psychological erosion really begins.
These violations can seem so small at first, that backhanded compliment in front of your friends, but it's just a joke. Or constantly canceling plans at the very last minute. Or maybe showing up unannounced at your job or when you're out with your own friends. The key here isn't a single event, it's the pattern. These are not random mistakes. They're deliberate little tests, probes to see just how much you're willing to put up with.
And this is so important. Because every single time one of these small boundaries gets crossed and you don't say anything, it sets a new baseline. It normalizes the invasion. It slowly, quietly teaches you that your personal space, your emotional limits, they're not respected. Maybe they're not even valid.
And you can really see the psychological journey a person goes on here. It starts small, right? Just making little concessions to keep the peace, to avoid a fight. But over time, that builds into a routine of submission. And from there, the person starts to doubt if they even have the right to set boundaries in the first place, which ultimately can lead to a total loss of their own autonomy.
And here's the really insidious twist. When the victim finally does try to push back, they get labeled. Suddenly, they're the one who's controlling or too rigid or no fun. Meanwhile, the manipulator frames their own disrespectful behavior as just being spontaneous and free-spirited. This is a classic form of gaslighting, and it's designed to make you question your own perfectly reasonable reactions.
Okay, so from there, the dynamic starts to escalate. It moves out of the private space and into the public arena. And this is where social charm gets weaponized as a tool for control and dominance.
Now, this is not just being friendly. This is a calculated performance. We're talking about things like prolonged eye contact with other people, over-the-top compliments, comments that have a clear double meaning, those little accidental touches, and it's all done right in front of their partner. Of course, in our world, this easily extends to things like suggestive likes and comments on social media, which just amplifies the whole effect. What's absolutely crucial to get here is that this public flirting, it's not really about genuine attraction to other people. It's a power play. The whole goal is to intentionally make their partner feel jealous and insecure, because that reinforces their own sense of being highly desired, and therefore completely in control of the relationship. So what happens when you confront them about it? Well, it's usually this predictable, devastating, three-step playbook designed to flip reality on its head. The very first move is just outright denial. You're told you're imagining things, a classic gaslighting tactic meant to make you question what you literally just saw. Then comes step 2. They shift the blame directly onto you. All of a sudden, their behavior isn't the problem. The problem is your character flaw. Your totally valid emotional response gets reframed as just a symptom of you being too insecure. And here's the final knockout punch that completes the cycle. By reacting to their disrespect, you are now painted as the aggressor. The person who's just trying to maintain some basic boundaries is now labeled as controlling. It's a masterful deflection of all responsibility. And this, unfortunately, often leads to the most overt form of betrayal, infidelity. But in this context, it's not just a lapse in loyalty. It's often a strategic tool used to acquire what's known as narcissistic supply, that external validation they need to feed their sense of grandiosity. Let's just break down the difference here, because it's huge.
You see, while common infidelity might come from dissatisfaction or a search for affection, narcissistic infidelity is driven by that bottomless pit of a need for external validation and power. It's actually less about the other person and way more about proving their own superiority and keeping their primary partner off balance. And if they get caught, well, the tactics are going to look pretty familiar, right? They'll deny completely, they'll gaslight you by questioning your trust. They'll shift the blame by calling you obsessed, or they'll just minimize the whole thing, saying it meant nothing. It's all about deflecting responsibility and staying in psychological control.
So we've talked about the tactics, but what is the real cost? Let's move to the final and, frankly, the most critical part of this, the cumulative, devastating effect that these patterns of invisible abuse have on a person's psyche over time.
You see, the impact isn't just about momentary pain. It's a slow, systematic erosion of a person's mental health. It leads to this chronic self-doubt and shame, a state of constant anxiety or hypervigilance. It can even show up as physical symptoms. And over time, it can create this powerful trauma bond and make it incredibly difficult to trust anyone ever again.
Now, you might be wondering, why do people stay? Well, there's a really powerful psychological reason for it, and it's called intermittent reinforcement. It's this unpredictable cycle of good and bad, moments of affection and validation mixed in with devaluation and abuse. This pattern creates a powerful, almost addictive-like connection known as a trauma bond, where the victim stays just hoping to get back to those good times.
But among all of these severe impacts, all of this damage, the source material identifies one consequence that is the most profound and devastating of all: the victim's gradual loss of their own identity.
And this is the ultimate tragedy of this kind of abuse. After being exposed to this manipulation for so long, a person can literally stop recognizing their own needs, their own values, their own desires. And so recovery isn't just about healing from the pain. It's about the long, incredibly difficult work of rediscovering and reconstructing who you fundamentally are.
Look, we've spent all this time identifying these hidden patterns because seeing them clearly is the essential first step to breaking the cycle. But it also leaves us with a really vital question to think about. Once you recognize the pattern, what do you do next?